and seeing what's happening with the ACC, and I was ecstatic about our meetings. I just thought it was just a great 3 days. We were a focus group, and we had a chance to talk about, I think, the important areas that are going on in college athletics. And we've shed ourselves from some of the things that were difficult to deal with, but we got to resolution and reconciliation and the things that all of you know. But when I look at what's occurred over the last several years with expansion, onboarding 3 new schools, the move to Charlotte after 70 years in Greensboro, the success initiatives, which is, again, I think very progressive and forward-thinking, revenue distributed differently from a CFP standpoint, and taking those dollars from expansion, the sponsorships of Ally with all of our women's sports and having a title sponsor like that, T. Rowe Price in men's basketball, Geico in football, the legal disputes and getting to resolution there that caused instability, and none of us were happy about that. I certainly wasn't happy about the instability it caused. I got it, and I'm proud of how we stayed steady, stayed committed to resolving an issue, and finally led to a different way we're going to distribute the base media rights, or portion of the base media rights with viewership. So we've experienced a lot, and again, until you go through those things, I'm not sure you understand or appreciate the time that you're thinking about it and working your way through it. So I just circle back to, it was just a great 3 days, because we had a chance to get to, with the FARs and the ADs and the SWAs and our 3 coaching groups, and talk about issues going on in their sports instead of what's happening maybe in a courtroom, etc. As far as the meetings go, we started with Charlie Baker, who was very good as he discussed governance. He really didn't talk about the House case much, and that wasn't the point of him to come down, but what does the new governance structure look like in the NCAA? And there's a working group that several of you have been writing about that's been led by Tim Sands, the president of Virginia Tech, who's been fantastic. And any of you that know Virginia Tech and Tim Sands, and he's just a phenomenal leader. We also have Bubba Cunningham, the AD at North Carolina, on that working group, and we're trying to find out what a governance structure looks like in 2025 and beyond. We're making, I think, a lot of good progress there. So more work to be done, but we continue to lead in those realms of college sports. Ongoing preparations for the House case. We all want this thing to get into the end zone, so to speak. I think it just would give us some clarity about what the structure looks like from a opportunity to revenue share with student athletes that are very deserving of that revenue, and to have some parameters around it. It's been a tough period over the last 3, 4, 5 months, because there's really not been any rules. We don't know if we're going to get the case all the way through, and that causes some bumpiness, but it also allows some less than forthright decisions to be made, with the movement of student athletes and what's happening. So there's just a little bit too much secrecy, with some of those elements. I think it cleared up once we get the House case finished up. LBI and Deloitte, the 2 entities that have been working with us after an intense search, really are good. And I know, again, a bunch of you have researched them, but Deloitte's as good of a consulting firm as there is, and LBI with their work in the NBA and Major League Baseball and others. And I think they have I know they have the experience necessary to set up a new structure that will be good for us in college sports. we had our friends at ESPN and our partners at ESPN and the ACC network here. We've never been more aligned. They helped us, and I'll come back to us. They helped us with this 20 game, the 18 game with men's basketball. That is very important for us. I'm incredibly restless with where we're at with men's basketball, because it's not reflective of who this league has been. And so we have to take some steps as a conference office to help branding and marketing and communications, which we've been doing over the last couple of years. Scheduling now is the latest piece of it, and then we've got to resource it. We've got to support our coaches and provide them the resources necessary. And I feel that the ACC is to be part of that as well with revenue, etc. So we had good meetings with ACCN and looking at the football season, our traveling road show, and how we can market it. The Labor Day weekend games were announced. I was like, can we just get to Labor Day kind of thing? I mean, that Thursday to Monday schedule is as good of a 5-day window as I think any conference has had maybe ever. I don't know. I think about that because it's such the uniqueness of not having professional football on that weekend and being able to play on those 5 days. I don't think we could have taken advantage of it more. In fact, there is some overlap where we're probably going to pull some eyeballs away from a game or two because people will be, chasing the other ACC game or the ACC team that's playing in it. So those are probably the highlights. The coaching groups, they were all a little bit different. Women's basketball, men's basketball, football. I know all of you, or most of you, talk to the coaches. I think you got a good read there, and it's always good to get face to face. There's nothing like it, and we all kind of resort to, well, we can just jump on a call, telephonic or a video call, but there's nothing like being face to face. So anyways, I'll stop there. I think that maybe gave you a pretty good overview, and we can talk about the things that you're interested in.
Jim, was there much discussion about the college football playoff, the concept of multiple automatic qualifiers, and how that, there's some coaches that said that they don't understand why you wouldn't just have qualifiers for the conference champions and take the next best 12, 14, 16 teams, but obviously there are conferences pushing for a different approach. Well, was there any consensus here about that?
Yeah, I would say this, Luke, I remain steadfast about fairness in the system and access, regardless of the model, etc. But out of respect for my colleagues that we've been working close with, I want to hold off on commenting about specific models or AQs and the rest of it. We're going to be getting back together again, and that is the other Power 4 commissioners. We've been on a nice rhythm where we're talking often and we're working on a lot of things, including this. But I stand true to what I've said before about the playoff and my thoughts there.
Without getting into specifics on the exact format, if there is a multiple AQ situation, you had brought up, I guess earlier in the year, about how do we want to rethink what our conference championship game is in terms of creating access opportunities for multiple teams from within the ACC. If there's multiple teams that are guaranteed a spot in there, how does that impact the championship game? Do you look at doing different things on that weekend?
Yeah, we've thought a lot about a variety of options that may be there, and I don't think you can go down any road until you have finality about what the model looks like. I will say this. One of the other things we'll have to look at is just seeding, and it just seems the straight seed may be the right thing for us to consider, but we'll get to that point when we get to that point, and we'll see where it goes.
And just a quick follow-up, if there's a through line in both football and men's basketball, it's championship access and championships. Are you concerned that it's been some years now since the ACC has won a national title in either sport, and is that tied toward getting as much access for as many teams as possible to those championships?
I think the question is a really good one, and I think you know the answer to that, honestly. Yes, I'm restless. I'm restless with holding that ultimate prize because we've done it so often prior, and that continues to be a point of priority for myself and for the league. And there's not many meetings that go by that we don't talk about that because of the history that we've had. And just over the last period of time, we haven't reached that mountaintop as often, obviously, as we have in the past.
Jim, there's been schools that have been talking more about brands, needing to play brands more, whether that's for TV or the new brand initiative, and Notre Dame sometimes comes up in that conversation. We saw they and Clemson just came to an agreement in terms of like Florida State and Miami, who may want to play Notre Dame more. I know every school in this conference wants to play Notre Dame. What does it look like when we talk about brands playing brands each other more, and how does Notre Dame fit into that?
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, Andrea. We've just gone through some different periods of time where we didn't have our option exercised. We still had litigation, and so you're looking at how do you create and draw value. We have now decided that viewership is going to be a part of how we distribute some of the base media rights. And so some of the things that we had walked down the road quite a bit, I think have to be reconsidered because we are distributing money differently. And so where do you, again, get fairness in this example, not only CFP, but where do you get fairness on opportunities? And you want to create the best matchups that you can. So how do you do that in a balanced way where everybody has an opportunity to elevate their own institution or football or basketball brand? So during the course of the last couple of days, we didn't really get to it. We were hopeful to, but we had a couple other things that kind of pushed that back. So no substantive talk about what you're asking about. Okay?
Jim, do Notre Dame's new games with Clemson count toward the contracted 5 per year?
Yeah, I've been, I think, pretty clear about that. The rotation is the rotation. It's five games every year. The Clemson Notre Dame piece of it is not part of that rotation of 5.
Is Notre Dame on board with that? Is there any conflict between the two parties?
No, I don't think so. What I would say to you is that's coming up. There's a start of a 2-game rotational within the 5. I think it's in 27, 28, or 28 and 29. And then what Notre Dame and Clemson decide after that they're working on that piece of it.
Well, Michael Alford said yesterday he's confident in your going back to the playoff in your efforts to fight for the ACC. Well, I know you don't want to get too far into the weeds, but what does that look like? What cards do you have to play? Like how's this process work from the ACC's perspective? Right?
Yeah, I don't want to go on any more details on that, and it's a really good question, but again, just in fairness of where we're at as a group, we've all kind of committed to trying to work together, and I've made some comments in the past that I continue to stand by. I hope you understand.
Going back to the Clemson question real fast, they played 3 other times after the 27, 28
Yes.
years, so does that count also toward the 5 ACCs?
Yeah, I would. The ones that have been announced or that they talked about, yes, that's part of this rotation that we have amongst the league across 16 other schools besides Clemson.
Jim, I was wondering just your thoughts on the Presidential Commission on College Sports that's being formed, your initial reaction to that, and how you maybe would like to see maybe a voice from the ACC in that, or how do you go about approaching that as a commissioner?
I'm for it. I believe it can help. We certainly have shared with you how many times we've been to DC and the work that we've done with our congressional leaders and elected officials. We've made significant progress. We have not been able to get this thing into the end zone, so to speak. And so if the president feels that a commission could potentially help, I'm all for it. And if you know the two individuals that, I don't know if they're co-chairing, but both names have been talked about. I mean, obviously we know of Coach Saban, who's just tremendous, and as good of a football coach individual as there is in the game. And then Cody Campbell, and you just read about his story, a former football player at Texas Tech. I think he's a first-generation college student going to Tech and playing football, changed his life forever. And he's had this enormously successful career. And so I think it's well-intended, and I don't know any of the specifics about who else is going to be on that commission and when they're going to get up and running. But I do feel that the time is right based on all the work that's previously been done and a supportive administration that's in there. And so I'm hopeful that can be a positive to an end result that gets us a standardized law across the country with NIL, whether it's a skinny protection or some type of legal protection from the ongoing onslaught of legal cases against the NCAA and college sports, and that there's the reaffirmation that these are students. Though compensated, they're students.
We've seen what a celebrity coach can do for ratings in the Colorado situation. We've seen, the North Carolina game get picked up for Labor Day night. Have you talked to the television partners about the impact of Bill Belichick, or anecdotally, have you seen the impact of the hiring of Bill Belichick on how attractive the North Carolina television product might be?
Yeah, I think they ran to us before we could even run to them, talking about our partners at Disney. Listen, it's a great thing for the league. It's a great thing for North Carolina, and we're all following just the massive coverage that Coach Belichick draws, and I don't know that he's got a private moment, to himself at all, from what I can see and read and what I follow. But I think it's good. I think it's good for our league. It's good for certainly North Carolina. It's good for college football. It draws more interest, and it was enjoyable to have him here this week with our joint group.
In those meetings, was he vocal and talked to other coaches who say, he brings kind of a different perspective along with coaches like Bill O'Brien or Frank Reich that have been in the NFL, as you guys kind of navigate some of these issues that maybe have more in common with the NFL than previous college football?
He did. When he speaks, people listen. But he was great. I thought the other coaches too, Frank Reich being new, Jake Dickers from Wake Forest, being in the college game, and from Washington State coming over. So I think it's a tremendous group of very highly successful coaches, and I'm thrilled about where I see where that's going to take us. I do. The competition should be as good as we've ever had. The commitment that I'm hearing from schools and coaches relaying from their own athletic departments is as extreme as I've ever heard. Not just those three particular places, but across the league. And so it was great to have him. We have 4 new men's basketball coaches, 2 with previous head coaching experience, 2 young guys that these are their first head coaching positions. We have 2 new women's basketball coaches at Georgia Tech and at SMU. So I like the additive feel that these coaches bring, whether it's football, the 3, the 4 in men's basketball, or the 2 in women's basketball.
If you'll allow me just one more
Sure.
on this topic. Obviously, there's been some maybe negative headlines or distractions. From the ACC's perspective, is any publicity good publicity in driving that, or is there some concern that the story may be getting off the rails?
I don't know that I concern myself with some of those things. I think about the elements that affect the ACC, and some of those other things I really don't even pay that much attention to.
Jim, for lack of better description, it's earnings season in college athletics with different conferences reporting out their tax returns and average distributions.
Yeah.
How would you describe the trajectory of ACC revenue, and satisfied, and how do you make it better?
Yeah, it's very positive, and that'll come out shortly. We continue to increase and grow. It's a high watermark for the league in the history of the league. But I think you know me, David, I try not to sit still on any of that and try to continue to be creative in any ways we can generate and provide additional resources for our schools. But it's in a really good path and it's going in the right direction. And it's, I think you just watch it over a period of time and whether it was through expansion or some of the things with ESPN or even just with our championships with football and basketball, it's had a really nice positive effect for our schools.
Jim, kind of to that end, how much is enough? Like, it seems like, and this isn't just the ACC deal. I feel like college sports in general, every conference is still chasing for more and more and more. At what point, is college sports going to eat itself because of greed, for lack of a better word?
I don't know where it goes, but what I would say to you, more money doesn't equate and guarantee success. Does it help? No question. I think we're fooling ourselves if we don't think it provides assistance in all the areas that you see expenses going to or revenues going towards the expenses. But I think you have to do, in our league, I think we've always tried to do more with less. I mean, that's just the position we've been in. But the controls and having some restraint, we haven't always probably done a great job in that area. And sometimes it's a race to the bottom. When you look at any of the areas that maybe we have extreme spending on it, I think we have to continue to hold ourselves accountable to be wise in how we use those resources. I feel like we do that really well, and our ADs and presidents do a great job with our particular schools, but that will continue to be talked about, I think, forever. I don't think there's a stop point to that. And but I do feel good, to David's question, I feel good about where we're headed that way from a financial standpoint.
After 2 years of instability, what is a realistic length or window for stability for the conference?
Well, I gotta believe, over the next 4 or 5 years, I would hope, or 3 or 4 years. I mean, I just think you gotta settle down, and I think college athletics needs it to settle down, not just the ACC. And I think we've positioned ourselves for that, and that's a good thing. It just is. Chaos and the constant, wondering of what's happening here or there. I just think that distracts from the business at hand. But I feel good about where we're at, and I still live one day at a time. but I do think that there is a period of time where let's settle in and let's get some of these things done. Let's go win, compete for championships, and then see where the future takes us.
Last question back here.
Yeah.
We're just over a month removed from when visas from certain countries were removed from folks. We saw how that could have potentially impacted Duke's come on, Malawatch. How concerned are you about the protection of future international student athletes?
It's important. It really is. And I'll probably digress for a moment. Listen, I love this country. I think a lot of people love this country. It's got a ton of ills, a ton of things that we have to get right. But one of the great things in college sports is it's not about what country you come from. It's not about what gender you're from, or have, or religious beliefs. It's about coming together and being part of a team. And the United States and access to higher education has had a great history together, I think, or at least a history that has allowed others from other countries to come and pursue their dreams and to help those individuals that may be less fortunate or come from difficult circumstances. So I feel good about us working again with the folks in Washington, D.C. to get to the right outcome and make sure that we remain committed, I think, to what I believe is our responsibility as, I think, the greatest country in the world.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate